Landscape by Mary Oliver. Isn't it plain? The sheets of moss, except that they have no tongues, could lecture all day if they wanted about spiritual patience. Isn't it clear the black oaks along the path are standing as though they were the most fragile of flowers?
Oh,
Every morning I walk like this around the pond, thinking, if the doors of my heart ever close, I am as good as dead. Every morning so far, I'm alive. And now the crow breaks off from the rest of the darkness and bursts up into the sky, as though all night they had thought of what they would like their lives to be and imagined their strong, thick wings. Welcome to our time of worship and fellowship. We are glad you are here.
As we light our chalice, we share our church covenant. We promise to listen and learn together with compassion, curiosity, and an open mind, engage in creating a warm and welcoming community, work together and beyond our walls to address social and environmental changes, and with our time, talent, and treasures support our church and its mission.
thanks, girls. That was lovely. Good morning and welcome. I'm the Reverend Pam Romancic, and my pronouns are she and hers, and I am blessed to serve the Unitarian Church in Hinsdale, Illinois. It is so good to gather with you on this snowy, white winter's morning. We were talking a little earlier that that maybe in the future years we'll be able to just stay home on these kind of mornings and still have church, just like we're doing right now. We gather each week as souls seeking to live engaged, relevant, and connected lives. We gather hoping for tools, for inspiration, and for support to become the very best people we can be, to have the best experience of our short time on this earth. Today, we're looking at how we can do that through the lens of poetry, that branch of literature which knows how to bypass the brain and go straight to the heart. If you enjoyed today's service, I hope you will share it with someone you know who might appreciate support during this challenging time. Our past services in 2020 can be found on the church's YouTube page, so you can revisit favorites or find ones that you have missed. Now, even during the pandemic, we still have a lot going on. So today there's going to be a finance committee that's going to be meeting right after church. And this week, besides the regular meetings of the meditation group, the wise elders, and the breakfast group, our prison pen pals are going to meet on Tuesday evening, and there's going to be a special town hall meeting with Dr. Ngozi Ezeki on Wednesday evening. If you have any questions that you would like to ask Dr. Ezeki, you can email them to me, and I'm creating a list that she will go from, because you won't be able to ask the questions there. All that information is on our website and in news and notes, so you can know how to join. Coming up, February 21st and 28th, we're going to have a brand new UU class for anyone who's new to our church, new to our faith in general, or just wants to learn more about who we are in Hinsdale, Illinois. The first day will answer questions about our theology, our national and local history, and how our church works, and the second day will be more about the nuts and bolts, about how you can get involved. I encourage you to visit our website or contact Pam Fodor to sign up. Our touchstone is going to be coming out this week, but if you are going to have anything that you would like to be submitted to the March touchstone, please get that in by the 15th of the month. Now, if you're new and would like to receive regular communications, you can leave your information in the chat box here, or you can click the contact button on our website. Each week, a number of folks are all invited to stay for a brief virtual coffee hour after the service. We split into chat rooms, and you can either respond to the service or the message, or you can get to know some new people or catch up on folks that you haven't seen for a while. And just a reminder that your staff is still working from home until it becomes safe to be in person. And unfortunately, our phone system has just started acting up lately. It's actually really old. So the best way to reach any of us is via email. And all of that contact information is on our website. A little later in the service, we will hold a space for meditation and prayer. We just learned that a beloved member of our congregation, Kathy Salzano, has just gone into hospice care. She was diagnosed with cancer only in October, so this is a painful shock to many of us. I invite you to keep Kathy and her family in your thoughts and prayers. There's a link on our website if you'd like to send them a meal to help them through this hard time. Now, if you or someone else you know is in need of support, please do let us know. You can type your intention in all caps in the chat box, or you can contact me, myself, or email the office, and we will do our best to help. Especially if it's something like getting groceries or some emergency arises, we have an emergency relief fund for this very purpose for the members of our community. Today, I want to thank Jean Schaefer, who comes out from behind the camera today to be our worship associate, and then our regulars, Jamie Passman and Suzanne Williams, who are just an amazing group of talented and generous people. Thank you. On this last day of January, as we begin to dream of those warmer days that are ahead, I invite you to light your chalice at home as we begin with a hymn.
Good morning, everyone. Let's see what our tool of the week is. This week, it's a level. A level is used for making sure that something is straight and balanced. So the level represents restoring balance when we have made a mistake. This is called reconciliation, or you can also use the word atonement. This means that two people who were once broken apart by conflict have come back together at one meant. When we are out of balance, when we've made mistakes, it can feel like we're separate from the people around us. So, thinking about a level and restoring balance can help us say we're sorry and to learn from our mistakes. Thanks. Have a great week.
Poetry is Sacrament, Disentangling from the Darkness by Parker Palmer. Years ago, a teacher told me poetry is my religion. I didn't understand what she meant until I began reading Mary Oliver, whose poems often strike me as sacraments, outward and visible signs of an inward and invisible grace. Some mornings when I wake up, and this morning was one of them, I find it hard to disentangle myself from the darkness. My analytic mind can usually tell me why. Today it was a lingering illness, a vexing email I got last night, and events that weigh me down. Understanding the why helps me gain perspective, but that kind of knowledge does not free me from the night, free me to move into the day, to engage the world with trust and hope. So this morning, as I always do, I turned to poetry, another kind of knowing, in search of grace, and found a dimly remembered Mary Oliver poem called Landscape. Taking in those images readied me for this truth. If the doors of my heart ever close, I am as good as dead. As long as I can feel the darkness as well as the light, those doors remain open, and with the poet I can say every morning so far I'm alive. I chalk that blessed fact up to a combination of dumb luck, the love of friends, the kindness of strangers, and the grace mediated by life's many sacraments, including poetry in the natural world. For this I can only say thank you. Poetry, said C.S. Lewis, is a little incarnation. When I read Mary Oliver, those little incarnations add up. They help me step full-bodied into the day with whatever light I possess to do whatever I can to illumine the darkness.
How to be alone. It all begins with knowing nothing lasts forever, so you might as well start packing now. In the meantime, practice being alive. There will be a party where you'll feel like nobody's paying you attention, and there will be a party where attention's all you'll get. What you need to do is to remember to talk to yourself between these parties. And again, there will be a day, a decade, where you won't fit in with your body, even though you're in the only body you're in. You need to control your habit of forgetting to breathe. Remember when you were younger and you practiced kissing on your arm? You were onto something then. Sometimes harm knows its own healing. Comfort knows its own intelligence. Kindness too. It needs no reason. There is a you telling you another story of you. Listen to her. Where do you feel anxiety in your body? The chest? The fist? The dream before waking? The head that feels like it's at the top of the swing, or the clutch of gut like falling and falling and falling and falling? It knows something. You're dying. Try to stay alive. For now, touch yourself. I'm serious. Touch yourself. Take your hand and place your hand someplace upon your body and listen to the community of madness that you are. You are such an interesting conversation. You belong here.
Good morning. I invite you now to settle into your chairs, to take a deep, filling breath into your body, and then to release that breath. Allowing any anxiety, any worry, any fretting that you have in your body to just drain out down your spine, through your hips, down through your feet to the rich, dark earth below. Our reading this morning is from the Reverend Susan Manker-Scale. Won't you join me in a moment of prayer? We speak to the God, the Goddess, the Spirit of life, the eternal. We speak to the mysterious thread that connects us to one, to the other, and to the universe. We speak to the deep wisdom at the center of our beings, and we embody the yearning of all people to touch each other more deeply, to hear each other more keenly, to see each other's joys and sorrows as our own, and to know that we are not alone. Unless we create solitude for ourselves, and even then, community awaits us. Out of our yearning, we have come to this religious community. May we help each other to proclaim the possibilities we see, to create the community we desire, to worship what is worthy in our lives, to teach the truth as we know it, and to serve with justice in all the ways that we can, so that to the end that our yearning is assuaged and our lives fulfilled in one another. Let us go now into the silence of the faith that is unique to each of us and still the same. Let us be silent together for a moment. May peace be yours.
When I Am Asked by Liesl Mueller. When I am asked how I began writing poems, I talk about the indifference of nature. It was soon after my mother died, a brilliant June day, everything blooming. I sat on a gray stone bench in a lovingly planted garden, but the daylilies were as deaf as the ears of drunken sleepers, and the roses curved inward. Nothing was black or broken, and not a leaf fell, and the sun blared endless commercials for summer holidays. I sat on a gray stone bench ringed with enjuen faces of pink and white impatience, and placed my grief in the mouth of language, the only thing that would grieve with me.
We now turn to the portion of our service when we share our gifts. While we're able to gather in person, we would have one collection plate each Sunday that we would share with an organization out in the world. But unfortunately, since we went virtual, the amount gathered has really dropped. So to try to remedy that, we've started reminding people each Sunday during the month. But still, we only invite you to share once for our designated recipient. We thank you for our patience with this ongoing sharing. Know you can click donate on our website or mark social action, or write FEP and send a check, January FEP in the memo line to 17 West Maple Street, Hinsdale, Illinois, 60521. We also have resources to help anyone within our community that is in need and needs some help during this long and ever-extending pandemic. If you need groceries or help with an emergency expense, please contact me or call the office. The generosity of this community has built up an emergency relief fund that is there to help.
Hi, I'm Lauren Ornelas. I'm the founder of Food Empowerment Project. I wanted to thank you so much for your support of the work that we do here at Food Empowerment Project. As a vegan food justice organization, you know the importance of the work that we do to help non-human animals not be part of our food system. As vegans, we understand the importance of where our food comes from, and so part of our work is also done to help farm workers who pick our food. We're also trying to get people not to buy chocolate sourced from the worst forms of slavery and child labor so that we can eat chocolate that is truly cruelty-free and isn't at the hands of the suffering or human animals or non-human animals as well. We're also doing our best to work to help those communities, mostly Black and brown communities, that lack access to healthy foods, to ensure that everybody has rights to healthy foods, but also has the ability to go vegan and eat their ethics if they want to. So thank you so much for all that you've done to support our work, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Hi, I'm Sharanya Krishna Prasad, and I'm the Executive Director of Food Empowerment Project. I want to thank the Unitarian Church of Hinsdale for featuring FEP and for collecting donations to support our work. FEP is a nonprofit organization, which means we're only able to do the work that we do as a result of contributions from wonderful supporters like you. And every donation makes a huge difference and will help us continue our work to create a more just and sustainable world in 2021 and beyond. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Rooney, serving on the board of the Unitarian Church of Hinsdale. This is a time in our service when we remember the good things this church does in the world and invite you to help support our work. You can go to our website, which is www.hinsdaleunitarian.org, and click on the donate button, or you can simply send your check in to the church office. I support this church for so many reasons. The members and leaders of this community inspire me to think differently, learn more, and most importantly, take action and consider ways I can live differently. I know myself well enough to know that I wouldn't be learning about and doing some of the work I'm involved in now all by myself. And for that encouragement and support, I am very grateful. Now, even though we can't be together, I invite you to say our offering words together. This church is made up of all of us. It is what we learn together, the work we do together, and the fun we have together. It is what we share with one another, with the people around us, and with all of the world. Thank you.
Let the Artist Win by the Reverend Bob Janice Dillon. I vote we let the artists win, the ones covered in paint from their last attempt to smuggle across the beauty of a bowl of fruit, or the 14-year-old rapper learning to spit, throwing life's chaos on the rhythm wheel, uncovering the shapes that live on after the next break. I say we let the food bank volunteers win, the ones always carrying around their agenda for the meeting, waging campaigns to stock shelves with bread. I would like to see the nurses extend their string of victories from the hospital bed to the nation's boardrooms, until we care for each other as if death were inevitable and mercy were the only thing that made the rounds bearable. I say we let the kindergarten teachers win, as they raise up small edifices for the beauty words will never capture or reveal. Maybe even let the helpless drunkard win sometimes, when she cries into her beer and declares it's all too much. I will let the grandmothers win when they tell the old stories that hold me in their keeping. And the children yelling, play, play, the ones who have already cost us so much of our final productivity, the only tyrants who can command the true attention of the wise, I want them to win too, again and again, without pity. And then when the men with guns come, we can say, I'm sorry, but whether you win or lose, it's never really been my game, sir. I have lost, and lost again 1,000 wars of the heart, and to those whom I have waved the white flag, those to whom I have surrendered the whole and wholly of my life, will never, never let me go.
Thank you, Jean. Those to whom I've surrendered the whole and wholly of my life will never, never let me go. Such a beautiful statement of trust in those connections which shore up our lives, which hold us through the deepest sense of self and purpose. I know I am most solid, most grounded in remembering my connections to the world in which I live and breathe. But in order to know those connections, first I have to know who I am. I have to know what I have to offer and how I can participate in those connections. Today, in case you haven't noticed, with all of these beautiful poems that you've heard so far, we're talking about the genre of poetry, that style of communicating which rests outside of everyday speech. Philosopher and poet David Whyte says that poetry is the language against which we have no defenses. Language against which we have no defenses. Poetry is a unique combination of words which break beyond the mind and pour straight into or out of our heart. Are you a poet? You'd be surprised at how many ordinary-looking folks write poetry surreptitiously without letting anybody know. I know I did for a very long time, feeling like it wasn't something I could claim. I was just a normal person. Poets are fancy people with important pedigrees. But I've come to understand just how wrong that is. Poetry is the language of the heart. No matter how wise or how foolish, how educated or self-taught, each and every one of us bears that beating human heart. We experience the world, and we try to make sense of it, and we try to find our own connection to this swirling, whirling place that can be confusing and just totally obfuscated. A lot of us try to stay in our heads while doing this work, where it seems to be a little bit safer. After all, we have much more control over our heads and our thoughts than we do over our hearts, our emotions. Feelings are the language of the heart, and they can have a life of their own. I remember a long time ago talking to my dad, who was a very smart guy and extremely well-read, and he was always thinking up ways that he could make the world a little better place. And one day I brought him this poem that just touched me so deeply, and I had to share it with him. And he looked uncomfortable, and he read it dutifully, and then he said, "I don't get poetry. It doesn't make any sense to me." I was kind of shocked. I knew that in school I had disliked those really long epic poems that went on and on about some battle or historic event. Those didn't speak to me either. But since then, I had found so many poems which opened up wide parts of me that I didn't even know were there, parts which brought tears to my eyes and which connected me to the wider world in rich, illuminating, and crystallizing ways. Looking back, I can see that my dad had put a wall around his heart. He loved us, but he loved us through the lens of reason, through his intellectual appreciation of what it meant to be the father of children. You know, he was one of those dads who, when you called, Mom always handed him the phone, and he would always say, "How are you? And what's the weather like?" And then hand the phone back to Mom as quickly as he could, because she held the emotional life of the family. She held the connections. He just gave us the facts. The world is made up of all kinds of people, that's for sure. Some of us feel more fluent in the language of sorrow and joy, love and loss, and all those other pesky emotional things. And some of us see the world through analytical minds and feel more comfortable keeping emotions at arm's length. But you know, this is me. And part of my job as your minister is to try to invite you more deeply into your own life. And sometimes that's inviting you beyond your current comfort zones. Now, I began poetry for real about, I think it was 2000, 2001. At that point in my life, I was in a very unhappy marriage, and I had no outlet for talking about the pain I was experiencing or looking for a path to find my way through. I can still find and remember the first poem I wrote as an adult. I felt like a poser, like doing something I had no right to do, but also I couldn't help myself. So I wrote this poem. I titled it Evening Storm. Thick as salt water, heavy and warm, the hum of the fan barely lifting a breeze. All night's creatures raise their ruckus, calling for the cooling rain, anticipating the jagged flash and rumbling fury that will come. Tonight, come and slake the dusty earth. Wash, refresh, renew, awake us from our sluggishness. Give us joy drops for all our travels. Smooth the wilt out of our soul. We will wake replenished. Certainly not poet laureate material, but it gave voice to something real within me. And so I kept writing. I have notebooks full of poems scribbled here and there from that time in my life. It was a time when I could use poetry as a relief valve to process so much going on in my life. It helped me stay sane It helped me clarify. It helped me claim my own voice and my ability to be in the world on my own. The year that I decided to go to seminary, this poem jumped me as I was driving down the street and demanded to be written at a stop sign. It was titled "This Year." This year, this is the year I redeem my life. I look up and blow kisses to the four winds. An expectant smile curls my lips. Surging power roars into my chest, pulsing to each fingertip. With rich delight, my smile asserts, I am. And this year, I believe it. That one was dated 2003, so I'd come a little bit in my poetry writing. But it was speaking from a place of just opening up to my wider connection to the world, to the idea that I could have agency. I could take charge over what would happen to me. Having just gotten out of a marriage that started when I was a mere 20 years old, this was a mind-blowing concept. And poetry gave me the words, gave me the ability to bring those things that were in my heart out and make them real. Not surprisingly, once I got to seminary, to that new life that I'd been working towards, my poetry writing kind of slacked off. In my experience, feeling content and happy doesn't always lend itself to reflective poetry. I might say a quiet prayer of thanks, but usually I'm not inspired to spill that gratitude onto pen and paper. My primary interaction with the world is not as a poet. Although it was the poetry of David Whyte who gave me the language I needed to process some very other dark times. A dear friend had sent me a CD of Whyte's poetry titled Poems of Self-Compassion. And you know, that CD has ended up being one of those things that I go back to again and again and again in my life. And each revisit offers a new set of insights, new aha moments from the very same set of poems. Because that's the power of verse. That words leave space to allow our soul, our spirit, to decipher, to hear what needs to be heard in that moment. Whyte writes, the poet lives and writes at the frontier between deep internal experience and the revelations of the outer world. There is no going back once this frontier has been reached. A new territory is visible, and what has been said cannot be unsaid. That is both the power and sometimes the terror of poetry. Good verse can evoke our inner lives, can open up things we may have locked down for a very particular reason, very good reasons in the moment. But once that moment passes, those stored emotions can keep us locked, can keep us from growing, can keep us from being the people that we really know we can be. In his poem, The Well of Grief, Whyte talks about the reasons we might choose not to go into that dark place. I'm going to do my best to try and play a little bit of that with you now.
Now, in the religious traditions, some of them. And then in the secular tradition, when you come to the well, you throw down a coin and you make a wish. And the wish is that you don't have to go down yourself. Because we intuit in that dark, watery hole both the source of our nourishment and the place we're so frightened to walk back into. And so we'll throw anything down there, credit cards. Anything, as long as we don't have to go down ourselves. Those who will not slip beneath the still surface on the well of grief, turning down through its black water to the place we cannot breathe, will never know the source from which we drink the secret water, cold and clear, nor find in the darkness glimmering the small round coins thrown by those who wish for something else.
There is a life down there. Those impulses of joy, of discovery, are tamped down with all the other things that have become unacceptable during our journey through life. Those things down in the well can be the source of our deepest connection to life when we reach down and find them. The power of this medium is that it can get around our carefully constructed guardrails. It can slip between the words we've used to protect ourselves from ourselves. It can open up spaces of deep and genuine, life-giving emotion. Now, the styles which work are going to be different for each of us. Some may thrill to the cadence of a sonnet. Others may appreciate an epic poem. Others may love the Zen quality of a haiku. The beauty of it is that we can each find our own way into that inner place of knowing through our own path. I think that's what Parker Palmer, when speaking of the incantations of Mary Oliver, meant. He said, "Her words help me step full-bodied into the day with whatever light I possess, to do whatever I can to illumine the darkness." Every life has its share of darkness, its share of sorrow, depression, loss, isolation, fear. There is no inoculation that can make our lives be always filled with sun. Sometimes it's hard to even remember the sun is still there. But words written in verse can sometimes open up that piece of sky and let it pour through. They can mine hidden strength and courage and wisdom which lives inside of us all the time. Each of us is a poet because each and every one of us is alive. And poetry is the language of life that speaks and greets our inner knowing. So today, my task for you on this snowy morning is to unleash your inner poet. Find a blank page, a scrap of paper, an old notebook gathering dust. Put pen in hand and see what comes out. I'll just give you a bit. It never works for me as well, typing on a computer. It's a different portion of the brain when you write than when you type. But try it both ways for yourself. See what might work best for you. And if you need a prompt, there are all kinds of websites out there, and I found this one called Think Written, which offers 101 prompts that can get you started if you don't even know how to begin. Here are 4. One says, write about something untouchable, something that will always be out of reach. Another was 7 days, 7 lines, which says, write a poem where each line or sentence is about each day of last week. Or Grandma's Kitchen. Focus on a single memory or describe what you imagine the typical grandmother's kitchen might be like. And the 4th one I have for this morning is Taste the Rainbow. What does your favorite color taste like? You don't have to be directive. You can just sit there and let whatever comes up work. You can start with a sentence that says, I am. I still have a beautiful poem that my daughter wrote in high school, which began, I am a daydreaming girl. Poetry belongs to everyone. White says poetry is a break for freedom. In a sense, all poems are good. All poems are an emblem of courage in the attempt to say the unsayable. But only a few are able to speak to something universal yet personal and distinct at the same time, to create a door through which others can walk into what was previously seemed unobtainable realms in the passage of a few short lines, end quote. People like our youth poet laureate, Amanda Gorman, can do that, and it is a wonder to behold. You'll hear more about her and from her in a few weeks when Anita Jenks brings her take on spoken word poetry and continues this conversation. But for today, remember that each and every one of us has the wisdom, the truth, and the insight waiting to just be given that opening to emerge and come out into the light of day. Poetry is a gift to and from the human heart, to be read, written, shared, and savored. Mary Oliver's words speak a truth in my heart. Every morning I walk like this around the pond, thinking, if the doors of my heart ever close, I am as good as dead. Join me in flinging wide those doors, in opening to sustaining, nurturing, wisdom for our hearts along the way. Amen, and blessed be.
Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
We extinguish its flame, but not the light of its truth. We warmth of this community, nor the fire of our commitment. These we carry in our hearts, and we share with all the world.
Our words of benediction are from Sean Parker Dennison. At this moment of ending, may there be a good word, a blessing, to help us remember what we have so often forgotten. May the message we need be gently spoken and held in the spaces of ourselves, the fibers that hold all we need to maintain our gentleness, our courage, and our hope. At this moment of ending, may the goodness we wish for ourselves and each other, this community, this ecosystem, this planet, this stardust galaxy become such a part of us that we cannot tell where the blessing ends and where we begin. Amen, and blessed be.